Just the worst. The absolute worst. I was not mentally prepared for this. Hi guys, and welcome to my birth story / vlog. I actually did vlog a lot more than I thought I would, which we're gonna hop right into, but I feel like we definitely need to set the scene first in order to understand everything because, oh my goodness, this was truly the most wild experience of my life. I feel like, as it should be, that's pretty normal, but there was a lot going into this also, a lot of question marks, and I actually ended up opting for an elective induction. There are two types of inductions. One is a medical induction, meaning the doctor's like, we need to get this baby out for whatever reason, so we're going to schedule for you to go into labor. The other one is where the patient opts for it. And so I don't know. I mean, like, there is a chance mine was a medical induction, but I don't think so. I really think it was an elective one. And the reason for that was because of my baby's head, specifically his size. And he's actually just sleeping in the crib right next to me, so we might have to grab him because he is sleeping very, like, crazily right now. Like, he's asleep, but he's, like, going like this, like, all around, which is common for newborns. But yeah, so I was very concerned about the head size and whether or not it was even a possibility of delivering him vaginally. I told you guys about this. You know, I was obviously vlogging my whole pregnancy. I never told you guys how big his head was measuring. Like, I never got into the specifics. So at my 36-week growth scan, his head was measuring over a month and a half ahead. Ahead, no pun intended. But yeah, so his head was measuring as if he was over 42 weeks. And that was 36 weeks. So I'm sitting there thinking, if I have him full term even, like, what the heck is that going to mean? And I asked my doctor, I was like, have you ever seen a head this big? And she didn't say yes, but she kind of just paused and laughed and was just like, it's definitely, like, one of, like, the biggest, like, I've ever seen. And I know growth scans can be inaccurate, like, that's a thing. I don't know why, but I just knew in my bones that this growth scan was not inaccurate. Not to mention, like, I could see the picture. Like, they printed out the ultrasound, like, you could see his body and then his head. So his head was obviously measuring off the charts above 100%, like, on the percentiles. His body, I think, was measuring, like, his body was still big, like, maybe, like, 80 something at percentile. We have a little wiggle boy. He loves wiggling. It's so fun for him to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Oh, you're smiling. That means you're about to poop. That's the only smiles you give me these days. So I just knew, looking at his ultrasound, like, this head is just out of this world. And I don't know how this happened. I asked my husband, Zach, and he apparently said big heads run in his family, which there is one photo of me in my childhood. I was a baby there. Like, that's a pretty big head too. So big heads, genetics, I guess. And I consulted with two different doctors and they both agreed, like, this makes a lot of sense for you to do an elective induction. 39 weeks, but I ended up not being able to do 39 weeks because how it works is they put you on the schedule and then they call you that evening. My hospital does, like, nighttime inductions where you go in at 9 p.m. and they put you on the schedule, but they call you around, like, 6 p.m. to tell you whether or not they have room for you, which I can't even begin to tell you what it is like to wake up and go through a whole day thinking I might be giving birth. Well, I knew I wouldn't be giving birth that night, but, like, I might be going into labor today, like, starting it or not. And what happened was, it was 2 nights in a row that they were like, sorry, it's busy, we don't have room for you, try again tomorrow. So I'm like, you know, I like psyched myself up all day, like, today's the day, oh my gosh, I'm gonna meet my son, like, what the heck, what's gonna happen, like, oh my goodness, because I had so many more nerves going into this birth. Oh, because of your head. Oh, you did it. That was pretty impressive, bro. That was pretty impressive. He just pooped. But yeah, like, the head size, like, I wasn't even, and this is ignorant of me, very ignorant now that I know what labor is like, I wasn't even nervous going into any of this. I was like, yeah, like, labor, of course, we were meant to do it, we're women, like, that's a thing. And then I found out about the head and I'm like, there's just, how can something that big fit, like, like, it just doesn't make sense. So anyway, I was very, very, very nervous, but on September 25th, they called me. Oh, wait, actually, this is very anticlimactic. They called me and said, we're full again tonight, like, but we'll let you know there is a chance we have a couple of labors that seem to be wrapping up. So we'll let you know, like, later on tonight if you can come in. I hang up the phone, that was around 6, and then, like, at 9:30, like, you know, I'm heavily pregnant, I'm so tired, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Zach ended up calling them and being like, are we coming in or not? And they said, like, keep your phone on loud because there's a chance, yes. And in my head, I'm just like, at this point, like, can we not do it tonight? Because, like, I'm tired. I want a full night of sleep before going into labor, like, if possible. I know, you know, obviously with spontaneous labor, you don't necessarily get that, like, that opportunity. And one thing about this whole induction thing I didn't even mention, I was very sad about it, honestly. I always just wanted, like, who doesn't want to go into labor spontaneously? Like, it's just the natural thing to do. And so I was very bummed about it, but my fears about this head that was growing by the day were outweighing everything. Because apparently, like, I think it's a thing where when your baby is in the womb at the end, they literally gain an ounce a day. And every day was just like another, like, what the heck is this going to do to my body? So I was pretty bummed. And I almost, by the way, opted for an elective C-section. I was doing a lot of research on the damage a big baby can do, and just not only the damage, but a lot of people whose babies have gotten stuck. And what that means is you experience 2 different labors, which sucks. You push, and then it doesn't work, and then you go in for a C-section, and you have to recover from both labors, essentially. Because my one friend told me, even who had a C-section, like, it was pretty painful down there because, you know, the baby was coming out. I just didn't make it because his head was big, actually. Another big-headed baby. So that was something I did not want. Like, I kept going back and forth. I'm like, I would rather a vaginal over a C-section, but I would much rather a planned C-section over an emergency C-section. So I was just going so back and forth. And then finally, I just decided, you know what? Why not give it a try? Because I talked to my doctor. The biggest thing in my head was, is there any risk to him, to my baby? Because if there is, we're just going to go in for the C-section. She said she wasn't worried about a big head. A big head means he's not coming out at all, and that's normally not that big of a deal in terms of his health. The big problem is if there's a small head, big shoulders. That can mean shoulder dystocia, which is where their head comes out, the rest of their body can't, and that could be really harmful to the baby. Because I think, like, once the head comes out, you have only a matter of minutes to get the full body out before, like, bad things happen. So I got the A-OK from my doctors to try, which was nerve-wracking enough, the fact that they kept referring to it as trying. I'm like, do you have no faith that this baby's coming out of me? Because if you don't, then please let's schedule the C-section. Like, I kept trying to get it out of them. Like, do you think this is possible? And they were just so adamant that, like, it's my decision and, like, I have to be the one to make it, and I did not want to make it. But I ended up obviously deciding for the induction. We went to bed that night thinking I wasn't having a baby that night. And then I got the call just after midnight. I mean, I'm fast asleep, like dead asleep. And then all of a sudden my phone starts ringing. I jump out of bed, answer it, and they were like, "Hi, Clancy, this is Christ Hospital. We are ready for you to come in." And, like, I can't even tell you how scary that was. Like, to be fast asleep and then to all of a sudden get the call, like, "We're ready for you to come in to start this labor," and who the heck knows what's gonna happen. But that is where the vlog begins. All right, guys, this is it. The beginning of our birth experience. This whole induction thing, Zach hasn't been the biggest fan of.
I'm happy that it's planned.
But it's not so
They
planned.
have not been very planned. I know they have to take in all their emergency women that are coming in, but they've changed the time on us 4 different times, so.
And the date.
A little stressful.
Like, because they obviously have to change it very last minute, because how can you know who's going into labor, who's not? It is currently 9:34 in the morning. We have definitely had ourselves an eventful morning. I'm starting to feel these contractions, but they're not, like, painful yet. But do you want to tell them, actually, Zach, from your point of view, what just went down? And this is only the beginning.
What do you mean? From the beginning, or what just happened?
What just happened?
I mean, you had that ball in you and you came out and a little blood everywhere, so, I mean, it's nothing.
Oh, there actually. Alright, I don't know what I vlogged and what I didn't. The doctor, so rude, walked in on me as I was doing my job. I'm kidding, obviously. Also, oh, it's so weird. This is like the calm before the storm, but also the calm after the storm. I had an awful, what was it, like an hour and a half, 2 hours? Oh, darn it, it's starting. The contractions, yikes, dang it, that doesn't feel good at all. But they put a Foley balloon up, and I've always heard it's called a Foley bulb, maybe. Get the epidural before it. A couple people have told me because of how agonizing it is, and I did not, and it was like pretty up there. What would you say your experience was dealing with that, Zach? You could turn it around.
I would say that Clancy is doing a great job. We're trying to rub her back and all that stuff to help alleviate some pain, but she is a 10 out of 10 trooper right now, and I mean, we are cruising. I thought we were going to be in the hospital for
We still don't.
a few days. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we know.
Oh, we didn't even say. They broke my water.
Yeah, so they
That's
broke
why
her
they-
water, and they think it's likely going to happen today. So, I mean, whether it's likely happening today or early tomorrow, that's still quicker than I anticipated. So,
The epidural is definitely a game plan of mine. Gosh, that pain caught me off guard. And there's just stuff leaking out of me by the second, like going down my legs. Like, no one needs to know that, but blood everywhere.
we're going to go for a walk.
Oh my god. Okay. It's painful.
This is why he's going to love you more than me.
Yeah, he better. He doesn't like piss. He's dead and
Here we are with Miss Clancy. She is, well, not just recently, about an hour ago, got her epidural, and she did that like a champ. Didn't even flinch.
Thank God.
I guess some of the dads drop like flies during that. So I did not drop like a fly.
Humble brag.
I'm worse with blood than I am with needles. So when the actual action happens is when I'm going to be on danger alert. But Clancy's been doing great. We had probably, I don't know, 50 minutes of not great contractions where we were struggling. But she cruised through those, got her epidural.
It really feels like a great relief. Like toward the end of those contractions, it was getting pretty rough. But the epidural. But the only thing is, like, I feel it's whatever because I was in a lot of pain. But it's like, oh, the epidural is great. I'm looking at the monitor, like my contractions have pretty much stopped, which sucks. But that's okay because I was gonna throw up from the pain. Like So.
We were cruising pretty good. Everybody unanimously has said that they think the baby is coming today. So
Zach's prediction was Zach really didn't have a lot of faith. We checked in, like my induction was scheduled for 9:25, like nighttime, and Zach predicted the baby was gonna come 9:28.
well, we didn't get here until 9:26.
At 1 in the morning. That's like
So hey, I could still be right. There is
no,
still
I really
time.
hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not too.
It'd be so brutal to be here
But
for just days.
it didn't seem like we were going to be cruising this quick. So Clancy's been a champ. We'll probably be hanging out here for a little bit like this. And I think our nurse comes back here in probably 10, 15 minutes to check on her. So we'll see.
TBD.
Wish her luck. Wish me luck. Jeez.
It is currently 3:35. Wanted to give a little update that the epidural isn't perfect. I was in a lot of pain for about, I don't know, like 45 minutes to an hour or an hour and a half, and they upped it. So that was great. We have a wonderful development. I haven't eaten in so many hours, and my nurse, shout out to Michelle, gave me like this cup of ice, but not only that, like that doesn't sound too great. She put, it's like over there, it's like one of those like energy, or not, what is it, Zach? It's like just one of those packets of like,
It's
flavors.
basically just like powdered sugar.
I am eating a snow cone. Like, this feels
Yeah.
so nice until I, like, get sick. I feel like I've been very nauseous, but I didn't even say I'm 8 centimeters dilated. And we shall see.
Clancy's doing great. Holding up. I've got my hood up. I look goofy. It's freezing. This
Probably like this bone every time
This
they come
AC
in.
unit is churning out.
Actually, Zach, do you want to tell them your quote last night?
What is my quote?
Zach was uncomfortable on his little couch, and the air conditioning was blowing directly on him, and he said, "This is inhumane."
Yeah, I'm supposed to freeze to death?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we should both be in equal amounts of pain.
Wow.
To show our love for him.
I don't know why I would have to be freezing my
Tail off.
body off. But Clancy's been doing good. Everybody here has been very, very helpful and nice.
I know.
I mean, everybody has been, but this Michelle that we've had during the day shift has been extra great.
The fact that we got her is like so
So,
lucky. I mean, everyone has been
yeah.
great, but like she's so good.
personality-wise, I think she gels well with us, so she's
part of us. She's part of the crew.
She's been very good. We probably are on a, I mean, you can't tell, but 2-hour timeline.
Zach literally just Googled.
They said it.
Zach knew
they
that.
said it.
You baited him with that question. You were like, your exact words were, so do you think it's like, I Googled like an hour?
No, I did not say I Googled it to them.
Well,
I just asked them, are we on a 2-hour give or take?
And she said, it could be shorter, it could be long.
Yeah, that's what give or take means, if you're aware of the saying, sweetie.
We will see what the next update holds. It's so weird, like, we don't know. Like, I watch so many of these vlogs and, like, I can't explain it. Like, I know the ending because I see the title. I don't, what's the title? Like, I don't know what our journey will be. My doctor did say with my baby has a very big head. I'm telling everyone this. And with that situation, her exact quote was actually like weeks ago, if you stall out at 8 centimeters, I'd probably pull you for a C-section sooner than most, which I'm okay with. I'm literally just like, whatever needs to happen. And that is the last that I've vlogged. And I will say, guys, what I've vlogged is so benign. In between the moments of me vlogging, it was excruciating. Contractions, I always wondered what they felt like. And like, no one could describe it. I always heard like period cramps, but like the worst period cramps of your life. And I don't like that description because like not even like period cramps for me at least are like really down. This is like a full body wrap around, just the worst feeling in the world where you feel like you are being consumed with just the worst pain you could imagine. Like, it just was awful. And I will say the hip squeezes that I had Zach doing were truly the most helpful thing ever, but he wasn't prepared for how hard he would have to squeeze. Like, I kept telling him, like, please, like, squeeze harder, and he wouldn't, like, because I think he was scared of hurting me. And, like, at one point, I'm like, Zach, I grabbed his hips as hard as possible. I'm like, this is what I need you to do to me. And he, like, was trying, but, like, it's just, he wasn't prepared. Like, I needed him to hurt me. Like, I was like, if there aren't bruises, this isn't successful. Like, I need pain to distract from this other horrible pain. I also did want to mention the epidural. Oh my, least painful thing ever. Like, truly, like, someone one time in a video I watched was like, oh, it's like a bee sting. That frightened me, because I'm like, I've gotten stung by a bee before, and it was, like, the most painful thing ever. Less painful than a bee sting, because it's lidocaine they put in first. Lidocaine is like a numbing agent. I've gotten it many times for various things. It doesn't feel good, but it's not scary. Oh, well, I will say it's scary. I was actually scared to death. Like, no one knew it on the outside. On the inside, I was so scared, and, like, the doctor was, like, obviously touch her back like a few times before it, like she's putting on whatever. Every time I would like sit up and flinch, and I'm like, oh my god, like I need to like stay still. But it was such a relief to not feel those contractions, and it happened like right away. So that was amazing. But what wasn't amazing was when the epidural started to wear off. And it did, I don't even know if it wore off. Like everything, like my legs were as numb as can be. Down there, when they were giving me like cervical checks and stuff, numb as can be. All of a sudden, it was just this very specific area down there, like to the left of like my pelvic region. The pain started getting agonizing, excruciating. You have like a little like bulb thing you can press to give yourself more of the epidural, which like I'm a very like trying to avoid doing that type of thing. Like I'm not a big medicine person, like whatever. I ended up giving myself that bulb like 3 or 4 times because I was just like, I need this pain to get like to end. Like I am in so much pain, and they kept trying to put me in different positions because they were worried that he was facing the wrong direction, sunny side up. I mentioned I was feeling a lot in my back, and then another thing that was happening that made them think that is my contractions on the monitor were doubling. And what that means is my body was trying to get him down. It wasn't working because he was not in a good position. And then it was trying right again, like double contractions, because it was like, this didn't work, let's try again. And it didn't work again. So that was what my nurse said, like, could mean he's not in a great position. So they had me going in all different positions with that peanut ball. Some very uncomfortable positions. The uncomfy ones were when I'm on my stomach, my whole lower half of my body is numb, I can barely move. And it just felt like I was like almost like suffocating. Not real. Okay, that's exaggerated. That's such an exaggeration. I wasn't suffocating, but I just felt so like helpless. So I did not like that, but I knew, I'm like, we need to get this baby in an optimal position, especially with this head size. Like there is no room for him to not be in the best position possible. So with all of that moving and grooving, I remember she came in at one point, the nurse, and I was just like, I I'm in a lot of pain. She checked me. I was 8 centimeters dilated, and that's when she put me back into that stomach position that I hated so unbelievably much. But I knew it was necessary. And I think one of the reasons this was also such a bad period of time is because I think I was going through a transition, which is that last final bit of your body dilating. My teeth were chattering. I was shaking a little bit. I wasn't cold. I think it was like the pain. But all I know is what sucked is every time I gave myself that little bulb, my legs were unbelievably numb. It just wasn't hitting that particular area. The nurse came in again, and I was just like, I don't know if it's the catheter, because one thing about getting an epidural is you need a catheter, which is, that like thought disgusts me. They have to put this thing up you, and that's how they get the pee out of you. And thank God they showed me the bag after. I was peeing up a storm. Like, yeah. So anyway, they give the catheter, and that was like mentally getting to me, and I was like, I am in a lot of pain, and maybe it's the catheter, which it wasn't the catheter. I mean, and she checked me, and she's like, that's not the catheter, that's your baby's head. Like, your baby's head is right there. It is time to push. So I checked into the hospital around 1 a.m., and then by 5 p.m. the next day, that is when it was time to push, which inductions can be so unbelievably long. Like, some people are there for 36 hours. Mine was relatively, like, moving and grooving. But little did I know that this was going to be the worst, just the worst, the absolute worst. I was not mentally prepared for this. Especially because I was getting an epidural, you think like, oh, you're just numb. But like I said, I had that one area that was not numb, and it was truly the worst 2 hours ever. And not everyone's experience is like that. I've watched vlogs where people are like, yeah, I didn't feel anything, and I pushed for 10 minutes and he was out. And listen, I think one of the things truly was his size, because they could tell, like, his head was there from the very beginning. Like, you could see his head, and they were like, this is a noggin. This is definitely a big head. And the doctor came in and did, like, I don't know, 20 minutes of pushes, and then I feel like she realized this was going to be a long journey for me, and the doctor left, and then it was just me and my main nurse, Michelle, shout out, who was, like, the best ever. Like, I am so grateful for her. She was there, like, every step of the way, and it was just, yeah. So she was there and was trying to, what she did is she held one of my legs and she wanted me to hold the other, but it was absolutely disgusting me to hold a leg I couldn't feel. Like, that sensation of just touching a part of yourself that is numb, it disgusted me, where she kept telling me to hold it, and I just kept ignoring her. I'm like, I refuse. Like, I will not do such a thing. So Zach ended up holding my other leg, which Zach and I talked about it beforehand, and I was like, whatever you do, like, you're not allowed to look down there. Like, that is disgusting. That is awful. That got thrown out the window within 4 seconds. I was in and what they do is they give you, like, you have to do 3 pushes in a row, guys. Like, it doesn't sound that hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. 3 pushes in a row, counting to 10. And not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm talking a slow 10. So you do 10, and then you only get like 2 seconds of a break, and then you got to go right back at it. And I was in the middle of one of my pushes. They were counting to 7. And all of a sudden I opened my eyes, and what do I see? This is Zach. And I just stopped everything, stopped pushing, and I'm like, Zach, get out of there. And I mean, it ended up not being a big, like, he was there the whole time. Like, it all was just, there was never going to be a time where he didn't see it. And actually my nurse at one point, because we were doing this for so freaking long, was like, do you want to feel the head? Like, the head is right there. Do you want to feel it? And I said, absolutely not. I do not want to feel it. That's disgusting to me. And then she was like, do you want to see it? Like, it can give you motivation. And I said, I don't want to see it. Like, don't show it to me. And then I think this was like an hour into pushing, maybe an hour and a half. She was like, you know what? I know you said you don't want to see it, but I'm showing it to you because you need this motivation. Like, you need to see how close he is. And I'm just like, fine. So they had these mirrors on the ceiling, actually, and she brought out this mirror, and she told me to look after I started doing one of my rounds of pushing, and sure enough, I saw it. And it wasn't, I thought it was going to be disgusting, but it wasn't, because it was just like the top of a head chilling. They alerted me that they were like, you have a blonde baby. His hair is light, but my hair was light as a baby. Like, he's not going to be blonde. He's going to, yeah, anyway. But when I push, like, they push my legs up, and then they put them back into these stirrups that are so wide. And it was so painful every time my legs got put back into the stirrups, like, so painful. And at one point, this was probably, I don't know how long we were in, but my nurse asked me, like, because I was struggling. I was really struggling. She said, okay, like, I know this is really hard. How do you feel? Do you feel like you're a 5 where this is really hard but you can do it? Or are you a 10 where like you really can't do this and we might need to like talk about other steps we can take? And I wanted so badly to tap out. Like, as I was pushing, all I could think is, give me a C-section. Like, in my head, I didn't say this because I knew I didn't want this, but in my head, I'm like, give me a C-section. Like, I literally just want to be rolled into surgery and just rip me, like, not rip me, but like cut me open, do whatever you have to do. Like, just get him out. And I think the other thing they could have thought of maybe would have been like a vacuum or forceps if I needed help with like that. And so I wanted so badly to be like 10, like I'm done, like I can't do this anymore, but I just knew like I can't just give up. So I said 5. I was like, I'm 5. And the other thing I was struggling with was extreme nausea. Every time I pushed, the first push would be okay. By the second time, I felt like I was going to puke. I'd have to kind of just stop pushing because I'm like, I'm going to vomit everywhere. So they ended up giving me in my IV like anti-nausea medication. One thing I have to say though that I'm so grateful for throughout all of this is that Decker's heart remained normal. I know that the heart rate can definitely like do some crazy things during this. It's a stressful time for the baby, especially for him. Like he's chilling, like he's just chilling right there being squeezed essentially for so long. His head was very misshapen, by the way. I didn't really get a good look. It was all craziness after, but Zach told me he was so concerned. Like he knew about like when you give birth, a lot of times the baby's head is like a cone and it looks a little weird. He said Decker's, it was worse than anything you could have ever imagined because Zach said it wasn't a cone. It literally just like kept going. Like anyway, so I have like notes here, by the way. So yeah, I'm very grateful his heart rate remained good. Like what more could we ask for? And then what happened was I needed a break. Like I just needed a hot minute, and I didn't even say that, but I feel like the nurse was like, all right, like we're not really getting anywhere. Because pushing, by the way, is the hardest thing in the world. Everyone always says, push like you're pooping. That was not what I was told. I was actually told many times, like, you're using the wrong muscle, do not use, like, your butt muscle. Use the other muscle. What muscle? Like, I've never used that muscle before. Like, what muscle? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, and plus I am numb, and yeah, so it was just not a good experience at all, but I took a break, and then all of a sudden, I was just like, I have an urge to push. I had not had this urge at all the whole entire time, but I was like, yeah, like I'm not doing anything and I feel like I should push. They called the doctor. She's in another delivery. So my nurse takes a look and she said she like saw Decker move without me doing anything. Like his head kind of like move a little bit. And she's like, okay, we need to call in backup. So they ended up calling a random resident who came in to monitor the situation. A resident is basically like, I'm pretty sure, a doctor in training. Like they're going to be a doctor, but they're still doing their, I think you have like 4 years of residency maybe. So this random man comes in and they're like, look at the situation, and he's literally just looking at everything. And by the way, I don't care at all. Like there is not a care in the world. Random nurses also ended up coming in who were like just wanting to like hang out essentially. And like honestly, I was grateful for it because first of all, they're very nice and encouraging. But second of all, it just made everything feel normal. Like we were just having normal conversations and I was like, this is great. But eventually the doctor did get there. The resident did not have to deliver the baby because they also told me to like, don't push anymore. And once the doctor got there the second time, I mean, it was probably a matter of like, I don't know, only like 5 or 6 pushes. I knew we were getting there when the doctor told me to only push 70%. And I know that they do that to help him not come out too fast, to help prevent tearing, which we're definitely gonna get to, or at least try to make it as not severe as possible. So she said, only give me like 70%. In my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we are there. Head came out, like the head came out, the body basically slipped out. I did push, but like the body was nothing compared to this massive head. Yes, he did have a massive head. I think it ended up being in the 95th percentile. It was big and it was a challenge to get out, that is for sure. And honestly, guys, he came out. I mean, it was the craziest thing. It's the craziest thing. Them handing you this thing that just came out of you. And he did not cry right away. He had so much like fluid in him. But I remember like them just putting him like on my chest and like they're kind of holding him up to try to get him crying and everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, please cry, please cry, please cry. Like, the only time in my life I'll ever want my baby to cry, right? And eventually, I don't know how many seconds it was because just time is so weird. He cried, they put him on my chest, and I would love to say like, oh my gosh, that moment was like the best moment ever. But I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, it wasn't. First of all, felt once he came out this horrible pain like from within. I think if I had to guess, it was my placenta detaching from myself. I don't know, but I just remember being like, I am in pain. There's this one picture that was taken, like you could just tell I'm like not well in that moment. And the other thing, there was this mirror on the ceiling and they put him on me. I looked up and I just saw so much blood. Guys, my doctor's arm, like not her hand, her arm was covered in blood. And I was just like, what is happening? It just freaked me out and it sent me into a tiny bit of shock where there's no other way to describe it. I was just like in a little bit of shock. I wasn't like myself for a little bit. I just was like, what the heck? Oh, and also they put him on me and he like pooped all over me right away. Like just all over me. It was great. Let my doctor do her thing, who was stitching me up. And that is one thing where it's all numb down there. I could tell she's going to town stitching me up and all I'm thinking is, how bad is the damage? Like that is the worst feeling, to be numb and just to be like, I don't know what just happened down there and I'm terrified. So I don't know how long she stitched me up for, maybe like 20 minutes-ish. Like it wasn't that long, it didn't feel like. She came over to the side of my bed and it was the moment of truth. I had done so much research on this, so she didn't even need to say this, but she was like, okay, so we classify these tears in 4 different like ways. Like it's a 1st degree, a 2nd degree, a 3rd degree, and a 4th degree. In my head, I'm like, just get to the point. I had a 3rd degree tear, which is considered a severe tear. Like this was my worst fear. I actually, in my head, based on my research and based on like people's experiences, came to the conclusion if I was going to have a 3rd degree tear, I would rather a C-section. Like I was just like, people say that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Oh my gosh.